The transport pod hissed open, and Captain Derek Cole stared at the trembling figure inside. The Valerian ambassador had been clear. This wasn't a prisoner exchange or a diplomatic gift. This was a death sentence with paperwork. "Her name is Lysa," the ambassador said through the translator, his triple-jointed fingers twitching nervously. "She carries the wasting sickness. Our medicine cannot help her. Your human doctors, perhaps they can do what we cannot." Derek looked at the young woman curled in the pod's corner. Her skin had an almost translucent quality, showing delicate vein patterns underneath. Her large eyes, amber-colored with flecks of silver, met his for just a moment before she looked away. She was dying. Anyone could see that. "Why us?" Derek asked. "Because humans are reckless enough to try," the ambassador replied. "And because if she dies, it happens far from our world. We cannot watch any more." The political implications hit Derek immediately. The Valerians were passing their problem to humanity, but they were also admitting something crucial. They needed help. The proud, ancient civilization that had rejected every human medical advance for 3 centuries was finally desperate enough to ask. "I'll take her," Derek said. The ambassador's relief was visible, even across species. "You understand she may not survive the week?" "I understand." Derek stepped into the pod and knelt beside Lysa. She flinched when he extended his hand. "Hey, I'm Derek. I'm going to help you." She spoke, her voice barely a whisper. The translator converted it to English. "I am already dead. They sent me away so I would not shame them by dying at home." "Well, you're not dead yet," Derek said. "And humans are pretty stubborn about things like that." 3 hours later, Lysa was in the medical bay of the human station Sentinel-7. Dr. Patricia Morris took one look at the scans and called Derek into her office. "This is bad," Patricia said, pulling up holographic displays of Lysa's cellular structure. "The wasting sickness is attacking her at a molecular level. It's breaking down the bonds in her cells, slowly dissolving her from the inside out. Can you help her?" Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "The Valerians have been studying this disease for 500 years. They have technology we're still trying to understand. If they couldn't fix it, can you help her?" Derek repeated. Patricia looked at him, then back at the scans. "I can try. But Derek, you need to understand something. If I fail, the Valerians will use this as proof that human medicine is inferior. It could set back our relations decades. And if you succeed," a small smile crossed Patricia's face, "then we show them what human stubbornness can accomplish." Over the next 2 weeks, Derek watched Patricia work. She brought in specialists from Earth, researchers who had been studying Valerian biology through limited data. They ran tests, tried experimental treatments, and worked around the clock. Lysa endured it all with quiet dignity, never complaining, never hoping. Derek visited her every day. At first, she barely spoke, but gradually she began to talk. She told him about her homeworld, about the gardens that grew in spiral patterns, about music that could only be heard in certain light frequencies. She talked about her family, who had mourned her before she even left. "They held my death ceremony," she said one evening. "In our culture, when the wasting sickness comes, you are already gone. The body just doesn't know it yet." "That's a pretty grim way to look at it," Derek said. "It is realistic." Lysa's amber eyes studied him. "Why do you visit me, Derek?" "You have duties, important work. I am just a dying alien your people took in out of curiosity. Is that what you think?" "It is what I know." Derek leaned forward. "You want to know why I visit? Because Patricia is going to cure you. And when she does, someone needs to be here to see your face when you realize you get to live." Lysa looked away. "Such optimism is painful." Get used to it, Derek said. You're dealing with humans now. On day 16, Patricia came running into Derek's quarters at 3 in the morning. We did it, she said, breathless. We actually did it. The treatment was elegant in its simplicity once they understood the problem. The wasting sickness attacked specific protein chains in Valerian cells. Human bodies produced a similar protein but with a slightly different structure. By introducing modified human stem cells that produce the human variant, they created a cellular defense that the disease couldn't break down. Lysa's body began to heal, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. Her translucent skin gained opacity. Her eyes brightened. She could stand without trembling, walk without assistance. How do you feel? Derek asked on day 30. Lysa looked at her hands, flexing her fingers. I feel like I am stealing time from death. No, Derek said. You're taking back what's yours. Part 2 of the story would come later when they had to tell the Valerian government what happened. Derek stood in the communication chamber, Lysa beside him. She had insisted on being present for this conversation. The holographic image of the Valerian High Council materialized before them, their expressions unreadable. We were informed you requested this emergency session, Council Leader Theron said. His eyes moved to Lysa and something flickered across his face. Shock, perhaps. Or fear? Lysa should not be standing. The human doctors cured the wasting sickness, Lysa said, her voice stronger than Derek had ever heard it. I am healed. The silence that followed was profound. The council members looked at each other, their skin patterns shifting colors in what Derek had learned was a sign of extreme agitation. That is impossible, Theron finally said. We have tried for centuries. Patricia stepped forward, joining Derek and Lysa. With respect, Council Leader, you tried for centuries using Valerian medical approaches. We came at it from a different angle. Explain. The word was sharp, almost angry. Patricia laid out the treatment in technical terms. As she spoke, Derek watched the council members' expressions change from disbelief to something else. Something that looked like humiliation. You used human biological material to cure a Valerian disease? Theron said slowly. You introduced foreign cells into her body. Modified human stem cells, yes, Patricia confirmed. They produce proteins that protect against the disease's attack mechanism. She is contaminated. The words hit like a physical blow. Lysa stiffened beside Derek, her hand instinctively going to her chest. She is cured, Derek said, his voice hard. There's a difference. In Valerian society, purity of form is sacred, Theron said. To mix species at a cellular level is an abomination. Lysa can never return home. She is no longer truly Valerian. Lysa's breathing had become rapid, shallow. Derek put a hand on her shoulder, feeling her tremble. Then your society has a serious problem, Derek said. Because we're not going to let her die just to preserve your idea of purity. She's alive. She's healthy. That's what matters. You do not understand our ways, human. I understand that you sent her here to die because you couldn't save her, Derek shot back. And now that we have saved her, you're upset about the method. That's not about purity. That's about pride. The council chamber erupted in angry clicking and whistling, the Valerian equivalent of shouting. Theron raised his hand for silence. The fact remains. Lysa cannot return. She is exiled. I do not want to return, Lysa said quietly. Everyone stopped. She raised her head, looking directly at Theron. You sent me away to die in shame. The humans gave me life. I choose to stay with those who valued my existence over their traditions. You would abandon your people? Theron asked. My people abandoned me first. The transmission ended abruptly. Derek turned to Lysa, concerned, but she was standing tall, her amber eyes clear. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I am free," she said. "For the first time in my life, I am truly free." The political fallout was immediate and complex. The Valerian government demanded that humanity cease all research based on Lysa's treatment. They claimed it was a violation of their biological sovereignty. The human government refused. Within a month, 3 more Valerians arrived at Sentinel-7. They came in secret, smuggled out by families who had members with the wasting sickness. Then 5 more, then 12. Each one brought the same story. They had been condemned to death by a disease their own people refused to fight with anything other than traditional methods. Each one begged for the human treatment. Patricia and her team worked tirelessly. They refined the treatment, made it faster, safer, more effective. The success rate was 97%. Lives that would have been lost were saved. Derek found Lysa in the observation deck one evening, staring out at the stars. She had taken to wearing human clothing, finding it more comfortable than traditional Valerian garments. Her health had improved so much that she barely looked like the dying woman who had arrived months ago. "How are the new arrivals settling in?" Derek asked, joining her at the window. "They are adjusting," Lysa said. "It is hard for them. They left behind families, entire lives, but they are alive to feel that pain." "Do you regret it, staying here instead of trying to go back?" Lysa was quiet for a moment. "I used to dream about home, the spiral gardens, the light song concerts, my family's dwelling. But those dreams were always tinged with the knowledge that I was dying. Now, when I dream, it is about tomorrow. About next week, about next year. I can plan for a future. That is worth more than any garden." "The Valarian government is calling you all traitors," Derek said gently. "They're saying you chose contamination over dignity." "Let them say what they wish," Lysa replied. "They are speaking from fear. Fear that their precious traditions are not as important as they believed. Fear that they were wrong. More Valerians came. The trickle became a stream. Families were smuggling out their sick loved ones, defying their government, risking everything for a chance at life. The Valarian High Council issued formal protests. They threatened to sever diplomatic relations with humanity. They called the treatments barbaric, but they couldn't stop their people from choosing life. Derek was in a strategy meeting when the alert came through. A Valarian diplomatic ship was approaching Sentinel-7, and they were requesting immediate docking permission. "This could be trouble," Commander Lisa Grant said. "They might be coming to take their people back by force. Or they might be coming for treatment," Patricia suggested. When the ship docked, a single Valerian emerged. He was old by their standards, his skin patterns faded, his movements slow. But Derek recognized him immediately. Theron, the council leader who had declared Lysa contaminated. "I require medical assistance," Theron said, his voice weak. "I have the wasting sickness." The medical bay was silent except for the soft beeping of monitors. Theron lay on the examination table, his pride stripped away by desperation. Patricia stood over him, reviewing his scans. "The disease is advanced," she said, "but we can still treat it. With human cellular material," Theron said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, and I will be contaminated, exiled, no longer pure Valerian." "He'll be alive," Derek said from where he stood by the door. "Seems like a fair trade." Theron's large eyes moved to him. "You do not understand what you ask. To give up everything I am, everything I have believed." "I understand that you have a choice," Derek replied. Die as a pure Valerian or live as something new. It's your call. My people will reject me. Your people are already here, Lisa said, entering the room. She walked up to Theron's bedside, looking down at the council leader who had exiled her. 43 Valerians on this station, all treated, all alive, all choosing a future over tradition. Theron looked at her, really looked at her. You seem well. I am well. I am more than well. I am alive in ways I never was before, even when I was healthy. How can you forgive us? Forgive me? Lysa considered this. I do not forgive the choice you made to exile me, but I understand the fear that drove it. And I hope that you can learn, as I did, that being alive is more important than being pure. The human medical team worked through the night, fighting a disease that had advanced further than any previous case. But they succeeded. 3 weeks later, Theron was on his feet, his health restored. He requested another communication with the Valerian High Council. This time, when the holographic images appeared, his former colleagues recoiled at the sight of him standing healthy. You underwent the treatment, one of them said, disgust evident in her tone. I did, Theron confirmed, and I have seen what our pride has cost us. 500 years of losing our people to a disease we could have cured if we had been willing to accept help. How many lives, how many brilliant minds, how many beloved family members have we lost because we valued purity over survival? You betray everything we stand for. I stand for life, Theron said, and I am returning home to argue for a new policy. The wasting sickness can be cured. We should cure it. You will not be allowed to return. Then I will broadcast my message from space. I will make sure every Valerian knows that there is a cure, that their loved ones do not have to die. You can exile me, but you cannot silence the truth. The council ended the transmission, but the damage was done. News of Theron's cure spread through Valerian space like wildfire. Families who had lost members to the wasting sickness demanded answers. Why hadn't their government pursued this treatment? Why had they let their people die? The protests started small but grew. Valerian citizens questioned their leaders openly, demanding change. The High Council tried to maintain their position, arguing that traditional values were more important than borrowed cures. But their people were no longer listening. 6 months after Lysa's arrival, the Valerian government fell. A new council was elected, one that prioritized survival over tradition. Their first act was to formally request a medical partnership with humanity. Derek stood with Lysa on the observation deck as the first official Valerian medical ship docked with Sentinel-7. It was filled with doctors, eager to learn the human treatment methods, ready to take the cure back to their people. Your world is changing because of you, Derek said. Our worlds are changing because humans refused to let me die, Lysa corrected. You showed my people that there are more important things than pride. Patricia joined them, looking tired but satisfied. We just got word from the Valerian homeworld. They've started implementing the treatment in their major medical centers. They're estimating they can save thousands of lives in the first year alone. And it all started because one captain was stubborn enough to care about a dying alien, Lysa said, looking at Derek. Derek shrugged. Like I said, humans are pretty stubborn about things like that. The partnership between humans and Valerians grew beyond just medical cooperation. Cultural exchanges began, scientific collaborations, trade agreements. The relationship that had been strained for centuries began to heal, built on the foundation of saved lives and mutual respect. But the real story, the one that mattered most, was quieter. It was in the Valerian families reunited with loved ones they had thought lost. It was in the young Valerians who no longer had to fear the wasting sickness. It was in every life saved, every future restored. Years passed. Lysa became a bridge between the two species, working as a cultural liaison. She helped humans understand Valerian traditions and helped Valerians see that change did not mean death of their culture, but evolution of it. Derek eventually retired from his position as captain, but he never lost touch with Lysa. They remained close friends, their bond forged in those early, desperate days when survival was uncertain. One evening, they sat together in the same observation deck where they had spent so many hours talking. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Derek asked. "If we had refused to take you in, or if the treatment had failed?" "I think about it often," Lysa admitted. "I would have died alone, afraid, certain that my life meant nothing. Instead, I lived to see my people free of a plague that haunted us for generations. I lived to help build a friendship between our species. I lived to have this conversation with you, my friend. Was it worth it, giving up your old life?" Lysa smiled, her amber eyes reflecting the starlight. "I did not give up my old life, Derek. I traded a short, pain-filled existence for a long, meaningful one. That is not a sacrifice. That is a gift." The medical breakthrough that saved Lysa became known as the Cole-Morris treatment, named after the captain who took her in and the doctor who cured her. It was taught in medical schools across human and Valerian space. But more than that, it became a symbol that sometimes the hardest thing to do is to accept help. That pride can be deadly, but humility can save lives. That different approaches to the same problem can lead to solutions that no one species could find alone. The Valerians who received the treatment formed their own community on Sentinel-7, building a unique culture that blended human and Valerian traditions. They were neither purely one nor the other, but something new, something stronger. They faced discrimination from traditional Valerians who still viewed them as contaminated, but they also found acceptance and friendship among humans who saw them as individuals, not as ambassadors of their species' prejudices. Lysa often spoke to new arrivals, those who had just received the treatment and were struggling with the implications of their choice. "You are not less Valarian because you carry human cells," she would tell them. "You are more alive. That is what matters. Your families may reject you now, but in time they will see what you have gained, not what you have lost. And if they do not, then you will build a new family here, among those who understand that survival is not a betrayal of who you are, but an affirmation of it." The galaxy watched as humans and Valerians proved that cooperation could overcome centuries of mistrust. Other species took notice. If the proud Valerians could accept help from the upstart humans, perhaps there was value in looking beyond traditional boundaries. Trade routes expanded, scientific collaborations multiplied. The galaxy became a little smaller, a little more connected. And at the center of it all was a simple truth, one that Derek had understood from the beginning. Every life has value. Every person deserves a chance to live. And sometimes, the most revolutionary act is simply refusing to give up on someone everyone else has already mourned. Lysa stood before a gathering of young Valerians, those newly diagnosed with the wasting sickness, their families still reeling from the news. She had done this dozens of times, but it never got easier. She could see the fear in their eyes, the same fear she had felt. "I know you are afraid," she began. "I know you feel like your life is ending before it truly began. I know because I felt the same way. But I am here to tell you that this is not an ending. It is a beginning." She gestured to the medical bay where Patricia and her expanded team worked. "The humans will treat you. They will introduce cells into your body that your people call contamination. Your government may exile you. Your families may turn away. But you will live. A young Valarian, barely into adulthood, raised a trembling hand. Is it worth it? Being cast out from everything we know? Lysa walked over to her, kneeling to meet her eyes. What is your name? Kira. Kira, let me ask you something. What do you want to do with your life? I want to study stellar mechanics. I want to understand how stars are born and die. I want to map the cosmic web and maybe, someday, contribute something meaningful to our understanding of the universe. Then you need to live long enough to do that, Lysa said gently. Yes, you may lose your place in Valarian society as you knew it, but you will gain something more precious. Time. Time to study, to learn, to contribute. Time to become who you are meant to be. Is that not worth any price? Kira's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. One by one, the young Valarians made their choice. They chose life. They chose the future. Years turned into decades. The Cole-Morris treatment became standard care, not just for the wasting sickness, but it opened doors to other cross-species medical innovations. Human and Valarian researchers worked together, combining their knowledge in ways that benefited both species. The political landscape shifted. The new Valarian government, led by those who had lost loved ones to the wasting sickness, prioritized scientific progress and interspecies cooperation. They built monuments to those who had died before the cure, vowing never to let pride cost lives again. Derek, now in his 70s, watched these changes with quiet satisfaction. He had done hundreds of important things in his career, commanded missions, negotiated treaties, led crews through dangerous situations, but saving one fragile alien woman remained his proudest achievement. Not because it made him famous, not because it changed the political landscape, but because it was the right thing to do, and it had mattered. Lysa, now considered an elder statesman among both humans and Valarians, continued her work as a cultural ambassador. She had lived long past what any Valarian with the wasting sickness had ever achieved before. She had seen her people transform from a rigid, tradition-bound society into one that valued life above all else. She had grandchildren now, adopted human children whose parents had died, whom she had taken in and raised as her own. They called her Grandmother Lysa, and they grew up understanding that family was not about biology, but about love and choice. The story of the fragile alien woman and the human who refused to let her die became legend. Children on both worlds learned about it in school. It was referenced in diplomatic negotiations, cited in medical journals, immortalized in art and song. But for those who lived it, it was simpler than all that. It was about seeing someone who needed help and choosing to help them, about refusing to accept that death was inevitable when life was possible, about having the courage to challenge tradition when tradition demanded unnecessary suffering. It was about being human, in the best possible sense of that word. Derek and Lysa sat together one last time on the observation deck of Sentinel-7. Both were old now, their bodies showing the wear of long, full lives. The station had been expanded, modernized, transformed into a hub of interspecies cooperation. Do you remember that first day? Derek asked. When you were curled up in that transport pod, convinced you were going to die? I remember everything, Lysa said. I remember thinking that dying among strangers would be the final indignity. I remember you kneeling beside me, promising to help. I remember not believing you. And now I know that the greatest gift one being can give another is simply to see them, really see them. Not as a problem, not as a political situation, not as a medical curiosity, but as a person who deserves to live. She reached out and took his weathered hand in hers. "You saw me, Derek, when my own people had already looked away. You saw me." That changed everything. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere on Sentinel-7, Valerian and human doctors were working together, saving lives. Somewhere, young people from both species were learning, growing, building futures that would have been impossible a generation ago. Somewhere, families were staying whole instead of being torn apart by disease, all because one human captain had been stubborn enough to care. All because one dying Valarian had been brave enough to accept help. All because two species had finally learned that what united them was more important than what divided them. The galaxy spun on, vast and uncaring, but in one small corner of it, on one station where hope had taken root, the universe seemed a little brighter, a little kinder, a little more full of possibility, and that, in the end, was the real miracle. Not the medical breakthrough or the political transformation, but the simple, profound truth that compassion could change worlds. Lysa looked at Derek, her oldest friend, the human who had given her back her life. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything." Derek squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for letting me help, for showing us all that some things are worth fighting for, no matter what the cost." They watched the stars together, two elderly souls who had seen their shared stubbornness reshape the galaxy. And if the universe had a memory, it would remember this moment, when hope triumphed over despair, when life won against death, when two different species proved that caring about each other was the most powerful force in all of creation. The lights of Sentinel-7 glowed against the darkness of space, a beacon of what was possible when beings chose connection over isolation, when they chose to help rather than to turn away, when they chose love over fear. And in the medical bay, another patient was being treated, another life was being saved, another future was being written. The cycle continued, as it always would, born from one simple act of human kindness that refused to accept that death was inevitable. Lysa was right. She was not contaminated. She was free, and that freedom had spread like light through darkness, illuminating a path forward for all who had the courage to follow. This was the legacy of the fragile alien woman and the stubborn human captain. Not monuments or medals, but lives lived fully, futures reclaimed, and a galaxy forever changed by the radical notion that every life matters, no matter who is living it. The end of their story was really just the beginning of countless others, each one a testament to what becomes possible when someone simply refuses to give up, refuses to look away, refuses to accept that suffering is inevitable. That was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology or military might, but an unshakable belief that things could be better, that problems could be solved, that death was not the final word as long as someone was willing to fight for life. And fight they did, one patient at a time, one breakthrough at a time, one saved life at a time. The wasting sickness that had plagued Valarian civilization for 500 years was now a footnote in history books, a reminder of what could be overcome when species worked together. But more than that, it was a reminder that sometimes the smallest act of kindness, the simplest choice to help someone in need, could echo through history and change the fate of worlds. Derek and Lysa knew this truth deeply. They had lived it, shaped it, become part of it. And as they sat together in the starlight, two old friends at the end of remarkable lives, they knew that their story would continue long after they were gone. Because they had taught the galaxy something important, they had shown that being different was not a barrier to connection, that traditions could evolve without being destroyed, that pride was never worth more than a single life, Most importantly, they had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not in their technology, or their adaptability, or their stubborn refusal to quit. It was in their capacity to care about someone they had every reason to ignore, to fight for someone when it would have been easier to let them go, to see the value in every life, and refuse to accept anything less than fighting for it with everything they had. That was the human way. That was what made them special in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations and powerful empires. They cared. Stubbornly, relentlessly, unreasonably. They cared. And in the end, that caring had saved not just one fragile alien woman, but an entire civilization's soul. The stars shone on, indifferent and eternal. But the beings who looked up at them were changed, forever marked by the lesson that compassion is not weakness, that helping others is not foolishness, that choosing life over tradition is not betrayal but the highest form of wisdom. Derek and Lysa had started something that could never be stopped, a movement built on the foundation of one simple act of human decency, and the galaxy was better for it.